G'day everyone, Turbo Tristan here. Welcome back to the channel. Today we are getting back onto the VTEG B18C Turbo Integra build. We've taken a break from this car purely for funds and parts reasons. So we're waiting on some parts and some funds. We've got the parts, we still don't have any funds. So make sure you like and subscribe and share the videos around so we can get more funds. Buy some stickers, help out the channel. Anyway, that's enough of that. We're just waiting on a head gasket now and an intake manifold gasket, but that doesn't mean I can't build the rest of the bottom end of the engine and get it all going. What are we going to put into it? This was a budget build. Now it is a semi-budget build. So what we were going to do was check the compression and do some valve stem seals in the head of the motor, because as you would have seen, I'll throw a clip up here. This Integra, like most B series, was blowing smoke when it hit VTEC or went up in the rev range. This was just like all the other ones, smoke blowing VTECs, oil burning VTECs, but now we have a freshly built head. This one is from Head to Head, which is in Clayton. They did an awesome job. It's all wrapped up. It's had the valves lapped, so reseated and resealed, skim the head, clean up everything. It's got new valve stem seals and new valve guides in there because they're made of brass. While the, we'll do some hand puppets here. While the valves are sliding in and out, they just wear out the valve guide because it's metal on brass, and that tends to make them wear. There's more of an angle on the head of the B series. They're nice and wide, and the valves come in at sort of these angles like this into the cylinder, where on a K it's more, instead of like that, it's like that, so they don't wear as quick. So we've established it's no longer a super tight budget build. We're not just gonna throw a turbo on and send it like we've done before. We want this thing to last. It did need the head refreshed. It wasn't something that I could just do here in the garage easily and properly. So we sent that to the professionals. We now have some ARP head studs. We've got some ACL race bearings. And while we're out, we've got fresh pistons, thick boy rods. Look at the thickness of these compared to the OEM. Tiny, huge. And this setup is actually heavier than the chromoly forged rods from MAXPEEDINGRODS. We'll talk more about those later on. But we've now managed to gap the rings for boost. We're running a 0.19 on the top ring and a 0.21 on the lower ring. We've got ARP studs in the rods. And it's just as well we didn't go the full budget option, because these are the bearings that came out of it. Now, they were still good. They weren't knocking. We didn't spin any, but they were getting through the bearing material down to the copper. Thrust bearings weren't too bad. All the bearing journals are nice and good. There's no marks on any of them, so that's nice as well. The crank, it's got a bit of long life lube on there at the moment, but there's absolutely no marks at all on the crank. And there was no scoring in the bore. So I've given that a quick hone with a dunny brush just a couple of times to get a nice crosshatch pattern in there. I've already gapped the rings, so it's time to throw this on a time lapse and slap the bottom end together. Alrighty guys, so as mentioned, we are running the MAXPEEDINGRODS rods on some, I'm not sure what kind of pistons these are. They're kind of like a brand new OEM piston. OEM size, everything's all the same size. We didn't bore it out at all or go oversized. But we've got some brand new cast pistons, alloy cast pistons on some MAXPEEDINGRODS, beefy boy rods. These are some really thick boys. These all weigh within plus or minus a gram of each other, is what it says in the brochure, but I've weighed these and they all weigh exactly the same. I can't say the same thing for the factory rods and pistons. Plus, being that they're steel, not chromoly, they are a lot heavier. So we're gonna find it's gonna rev a lot nicer now. The other thing that made life easy this time around is the ring gap filer. So I bought one of these on eBay. I'll keep that now, and I may even find somewhere to mount it so I can always just come to it whenever I need to. Already gone ahead and installed the new rear main seal and front main seal on the oil pump. I did think about shimming up the oil pump and making it more of a high flow, high pressure oil pump, but I think I'm just gonna leave it for now. I don't wanna mess with things. The oil pressure and all that was good on the car. I do have the knock sensor replacement for the one that I damaged when I removed that on the car. So this one is from Premier Auto Trade, the same people that do RACEWORKS and look after us with that. So thanks so much to RACEWORKS and PAT for helping us out with the knock sensor. I've already cleaned out all the bores and cleaned all the oil and all that sort of stuff out of there with some brake cleaner. And I kept going until the paper towel was totally clean. I'm gonna get my air compressor and blow it all out. And then we can start assembling these. Should be nice and fun, nice and simple. We'll get it in, get it done. Hopefully that wasn't too boring for you guys, but she's all together now, the bottom end is, and we've written in there, don't blow up, spool up. Everything's been torqued to spec on the underside. Didn't forget to put this bad boy in, the Screaming Face VTEC oil sucker, and the windage tray, oil pumps on. I've put the fitting on for the turbo line. Now these are on spoolup.com.au, and I'll make sure these ones are on. I don't think they're on yet. There's 1,000,001 fittings from RACEWORKS that I don't yet have on my website. It's just a very time-consuming process, but I'll make a little package with these and I'll probably put those two together and sell them as a kit so that you guys just go, yep, Honda, oil fitting, turbo line feed, bang, grab it, and yeah, I reckon I'll do that by the time this video is out. And up top, we've got the ARP head studs in. They're all the way hand tight, which as it says to do in the instructions in the box. So just put the 4.5mm Allen key in there and just do that up just hand tight. And I've sprayed all the cylinder walls down with some CRC just for now, because we're gonna have to cover this over because we need a head gasket, and then I can put the head on and start building the rest of the head. I've got to put the cams back in, the cam caps, and just do up all those oil plug galleries and just make sure that they're all good. And then I can torque that down, and then we've got a sealed top and bottom. Then it's on to welding up the sump and sealing that. But there's heaps and heaps going on. I'm not sure how long this video is going to be or what I'm going to show of it, but just letting you guys know we are back on the Teggy VTEG. It's a couple of days later. Naoki's just come past. He's dropped off a genuine head gasket and a genuine intake manifold gasket. Both of those are from Elusive Racing. We've got their sign up on the wall. Big supporters of all the Honda community down here in Melbourne and all over Australia. The reason why we send all you guys to Elusive Racing is because they are there for you guys. They keep all the parts on the shelf and it's just convenient. Yeah, you can order stuff from all over the world these days, but the good thing about you guys being in Australia here is everything is already on the shelf at Elusive. If you're in Melbourne, if you're into Hondas, go down to Elusive Racing, tell them I sent you, because they help us out with having all of these hard to get parts on the shelf. Before I stick the head on, it's best I show you guys because I know you're all gonna wanna see it. Sexy machined head. So what we've done to this one is it's been machined. The valves have been reseated. We've got brand new SuperTech valve guides, valve stem seals, that's all been done. Everything has been fully cleaned all the way around. Once I get the head on, then I will just double check all of these things to make sure they're all tight. These ones definitely aren't, they're still out. So I'll get those all sealed up and torqued down. It's easier to do that when the head is on the engine. So let's get it on. So the instructions say to torque these down to 80 foot-pounds in 3 equal steps. I've already gone and done the 40 foot-pound torque setting. Now I'm going to crank that up to 60, then we'll do 80. Obviously, very precise. These things are very important. We don't want to overstretch the head studs. And there we go, 80 on the dot. Whew. 60 was hard, 80 is going to be much tougher. Whew. Damn, feel the burn. And I guess you would say that is torqued to spec. I won't chuck the cams in just yet. I'm going to do some research and just study the correct amount of valve lash adjustment that we need. It may already be set up by the head builder, but it probably isn't. So, and you shouldn't just take it for granted either. It's always a good idea to check these things. That was a big step getting that on. Next is valve lash, cams, all the top assembly, we're good to go. Excuse the mess, guys, but just want to talk you through the injectors. So on the spool up site, we have these little critters here, and they are injector bosses. They go into the factory injector seat there. This is a Skunk 2 manifold, but they do work on all of the factory B series. Then what we have here is the 1000cc short injectors with, or 3/4 length injectors with the little extension on the top. The extension goes on the top, guys, not on the bottom. If you put it on the bottom, it will make your spray patterns go everywhere. Plus you need the correct 11mm ID top hat there. And we also have the Bosch to OEM Honda adapter plug. This is sold as a kit on the Spool Up website. So you get this part, the injector, the hat, and also the connector. And I'm just gonna fit this up now and show you what it looks like once it all goes together. One other thing, I am using the factory fuel rail, as we did intend to keep this as a budget build, although it's blown out a bit now. We have the RACEWORKS -6 fuel rail adapter for Honda B series. And what I've done is taken the factory banjo off, and I have tapped this out, as you can see there once it focuses, to a 14mm thread, and that will allow me to run a -6 fitting in the end there. And we've got the same diameter all the way down there, which is this diameter here. So we've high flowed the fuel rail, we've added a fitting on the end, and we've got the pressure regulator out adapter. I'm going to stick it all together now, show you what it looks like. Alrighty guys, I think this video is dragged on long enough. Let's check out some progress. I have the most disgusting shed that I've had since I've pretty much lived here, I reckon. There's stuff everywhere, but take a look at this. We've got it all on. Rocker cover painted up beautifully. It's not buttoned down yet. I've still got to do the valve lash underneath here, which I'll do now that I have the timing belt on. So we've got a brand new Gates timing belt from Bearing Wholesalers. We've got all new seals from Bearing Wholesalers. And I use KBS on here to clean this up. I've welded on the exhaust bung, tested it for leaks, done the gasket on the sump. Turbo's on. Garrett spinny boy on there. There's going to be more about this later on, why we chose this turbo, why we're using this one, etc. Elusive manifold, and we've had the head done by head-to-head. There's the seal of approval there, so that's been fully redone. Decked, valve guides, valve stem seals, lapped the valves, everything's done. And the Hawkeye viewers might notice this new part here. This is the very first one. Well, it's actually the production model. This is from Honed Developments. I'll throw some better photos up here now, just of the piece and putting it on. This allows you to space out outlet for the radiator, but also has two 1/8 NPT fittings. We're going to use one of them to run the water line down here. The other one can be used for a water pressure sensor or a water temp sensor. Pressure and temp is a good sensor to run too, because if you have the pressure sensor, then you can tell if you are lifting the head at all, or if there's any cylinder pressure going into your cooling system. So that's a good one to utilize. I'm going to utilize it for the water cooling here on the Garrett turbo. We want to make sure we look after this thing. I've put on the RACEWORKS turbo beanie. RACEWORKS fittings here. We've got the feed line is done. So that's it down there. Feed line on, oil pressure switch on. Now it would be a good idea if we were running like a Haltech or something to swap that to an oil pressure sensor, not just the warning light. We've got the brand new knock sensor on down there, and we've got the manifold, Skunk 2 manifold, all painted up. We got that from Thomas Saar from TNT Garage. Genuine Skunk 2 plenum and throttle body. We've got the modified rail here. This is the factory fuel rail with the RACEWORKS -6 outlet fitting. We've got the RACEWORKS 1000cc injectors and the adapter plugs, and these little pieces down here, which are the adapters for the manifolds. That comes as a kit, so 550 or 1000cc injectors with the plugs, with the little extensions and the mounting bosses on spoolup.com. And here is the modified rail. So that's been tapped out to 14 by 1.5 thread, and that gives us plenty of room to put a nice fitting in there and also run -6 straight through the fuel rail, utilizing the factory one. So pretty happy with that. Pretty happy how everything's turned out. We had to modify this bracket here to go around the ram horn manifold from Elusive Racing, and Kenny actually gave me the tip to do that. So we're still running power steering. In the next video, I'm gonna have all of this done, which will be the downpipe's gonna come out of here, do a very tight turn, come down around here, and then shoot down under there in 3-inch, and we've still got to leave ourselves enough room to go 90 up here, and then with the fitting down here. But we should be able to sneak that in. I had to modify this bracket, so this is the torque mount. You don't have to run these, but when you're making lots of torque, it's a great idea. So we're going to keep this. We kept all the bolts except for one that goes there because the bracket was quite large, and that's what actually bolts the AC on. Now, don't ask me how you're supposed to run AC with this turbo setup on a B18. You could probably get away with it if you ran a high mount, but we're running a low mount, and the AC would go right here. So to run this, you'd need a tiny turbo and a really flat downpipe like that. So we're not running AC. We're using the bracket for the torque mount. Everything is now done up and done. Pull the manifold off one last time, chuck some gasket on here and here, nip everything up, and then we're gonna do the screamer pipe straight down here to the bottom. So it's gonna come out here and then straight down. Exhaust is gonna come out here, around, and then under. And you'll see all of that in a future episode of VTEC build. It's no longer a budget build, it's kind of somewhere in the middle, but thanks so much for watching. Don't forget, spool up, bring the boost, and we'll see you in the next video. Cheers.